The airport lounge was quiet until it wasn't. A single voice cut through the glass and chrome like a blade. "Wait outside, ape. This lounge is not for you." Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the hum of rolling suitcases seemed to stutter. She stood there, black suit jacket folded clean across her shoulders, white blouse-like light against the steel gray of the terminal. A leather bag hung loosely in her hand. Not a brand splashed with gold, just understated polish. She wasn't loud. She wasn't moving. But every eye was on her now. The woman in uniform stood opposite, hand raised as if commanding traffic. Navy blazer, red-blue scarf knotted tight at her throat, the badge on her chest catching fluorescent light. She didn't whisper. She wanted the whole lounge to hear her dismissal. Behind her, 4 passengers froze in a line of disbelief. A man in a tailored gray suit frowned but stayed silent. A young woman in denim pressed her lips together. A middle-aged traveler shifted uncomfortably. No one stepped forward. Not yet. The black woman didn't speak. She didn't flinch. She let the insult hang in the air like smoke from a match just struck. Inside her chest, though, a memory flickered. Atlanta, years ago, 23 years old, fresh after closing her first small contract. She'd walked into a marble-floored bank, paperwork in hand, only to be told, "Real clients wait inside. You wait outside." The sting then had carved something permanent. And here it was again, dressed up in another uniform, another voice, another century. This time, she did not move. The uniformed woman narrowed her eyes, arm still extended. "You heard me," she repeated, slower, crueler, the words rolling heavy through the sterile air. "Step back. Go outside." Phones lifted. A ripple of light from screens reflected off glass partitions. Someone whispered, "Is she serious?" Another muttered, "This is... wow." Silence pressed down on the room, heavy, charged, waiting to see if the woman in white would argue, beg, explode. But she didn't. She simply stood there, still, anchored to the floor as if the marble belonged to her. The air cracked with a sudden cough from a passenger in the corner, then stilled again. The insult wasn't forgotten. It was alive, replaying in every head that had heard it. The black woman's eyes did not waver. She looked at the hand still held up to block her path, then past it, toward the lounge seats she had paid for, toward the flight manifest she had authorized, toward the system she owned, but had chosen not to reveal. Not yet. For the crowd, it looked like silence. For her, it was calculation. And before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. Because 1 minute from now, this entire room will know the truth. The silence didn't last. "Ma'am, you need to step aside." Another voice cut in sharper. Male, carrying authority. A supervisor now. Navy vest stretched across his shoulders, clipboard in hand like a weapon of policy. He glanced at the boarding pass still visible between her fingers and scoffed. "This isn't valid. People like you try this every week. Take your things and wait outside." The words landed like stones tossed into still water. Ripples spread. Murmurs rose. A man in a tailored suit leaned toward his wife, whispering, "That's excessive." She shushed him, eyes darting nervously at the staff. The black woman remained steady. Her pass didn't move. Neither did she. Inside her head, another flash. 29 years old, walking into a corporate boardroom for the first time. She had been told to wait in the lobby because the meeting is for executives only. She was the one scheduled to present. She was the one whose signature was on the acquisition papers. Yet she'd stood there quietly until the right moment, and then they never forgot her name again. Back in the lounge, the supervisor snapped his fingers at a nearby attendant. "Security." The single word shot through the air like a trigger pulled. Phones lifted higher now. A young man in a denim jacket whispered to the camera, "She's not doing anything. Just standing there." His live stream already had comments scrolling across the screen. "This looks wrong. Where is this?" "Name the airline." The uniformed woman with the red scarf smirked, her hand still raised like a gate that would never open. "Don't waste our time. First class is reserved. Not for..." She didn't finish, but everyone heard the word she swallowed. The black woman finally moved only her eyes. She turned them slowly, scanning the faces around her. The frown in the corner, the clenched jaw near the glass, the whispered disbelief. She took it all in, not as defense, but as record. Still, she said nothing. A passenger near the espresso counter spoke up, voice trembling but audible. "She's not causing trouble. Why are you treating her like this?" The supervisor turned sharply. "Sir, this is none of your concern." But it was. The air itself had shifted. This wasn't just a check-in anymore, it was a spectacle. One everyone in that lounge would remember. The black woman lowered her gaze briefly to the torn silence between them. Her voice hadn't entered the room yet, and that was what frightened them most. Because silence can be louder than shouting, the supervisor didn't wait. He reached for the boarding pass in her hand. With one swift tug, paper tore. The sound was small, but it cracked through the lounge like thunder. Half of the ticket fluttered to the carpet. The other half dangled from his grip, a jagged edge of insult. Gasps erupted. Someone whispered, "Did he just?" Another muttered, "That's her property." The black woman still didn't move. Her leather bag rested against her leg, calm, anchored, until the scarfed attendant shoved it sideways with her foot. The bag tipped, sliding against the marble, straps twisting like it didn't belong. "Fraud," the woman spat. "Leave now, before security drags you out." Every camera tilted upward. The phones that had been subtle before now glowed like a constellation of witnesses. She bent not in surrender, but to pick up the fallen half of her pass. Fingers brushed paper. She held it between thumb and forefinger, studied the torn edge, then raised her eyes slowly. No words yet, just the look. Across the lounge, a teenage boy muttered to his mother. She didn't even fight back. His mother nodded, her voice low but firm. "That's the point. Watch." The supervisor smirked, emboldened by silence. Not verified, not welcome. He tossed the torn stub onto a nearby counter like trash. Inside her chest, another memory surfaced. 16 years old, dressed in Sunday best, waiting in a hotel lobby for her parent. A clerk had walked up, eyes narrowed, and said, "Guests only. You wait outside." They hadn't listened when she explained. They had ushered her to the sidewalk. The shame had burned like a brand. She carried it for years, not as pain, but as fuel. Now here it was again, replayed in sharper colors, louder voices, and yet the same arrogance. A woman in the crowd finally snapped. She stepped forward, voice shaking but resolute. "She's not the problem. You are." The room stirred. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others nodded quietly. The cameras kept recording. The black woman rose to her full height again, shoulders square, gaze steady. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Not yet. Because every second of silence was another nail in the coffin they were building for themselves. And soon, the hammer would fall. The torn ticket lay on the counter, silent proof of arrogance. For a moment, no one moved. Then the murmurs swelled. She didn't even resist. "That's not right. Why are they doing this?" The lounge had shifted. What began as a transaction was now theater, and every person inside had been pulled into the scene. The scarfed attendant leaned forward, lips curling. "Do you understand English?" "Out." Her voice rose deliberately, sharp enough to pierce the entire waiting area. A toddler clutched his father's sleeve, startled by the volume. The black woman didn't flinch. She bent slowly, picked up her bag from the marble floor, brushed it once, and set it upright beside her chair. The movement was graceful, deliberate, unhurried as if she had all the time in the world. That stillness rattled them more than shouting ever could. A man near the espresso counter finally lifted his voice. She showed her pass. I saw it. He looked around, searching for affirmation. A woman in a navy dress nodded. So did I. The supervisor snapped back. Irrelevant. It wasn't valid. This is protocol. But his words carried less weight now. Too many eyes had seen otherwise. Too many phones were watching. The black woman's gaze swept the room again. She met the eyes of the man at the counter, then the woman in the navy dress, then the teenager still whispering to his mother. Her silence wasn't emptiness, it was an invitation. And it worked. A voice rose from the back. This is discrimination. Another followed. She's calm. Why are they escalating? The crowd leaned forward. The line between observer and participant blurred. The supervisor, sensing control slipping, slammed his clipboard onto the counter. The crack echoed. Enough. This ends now. You're leaving. The black woman did not step back. She adjusted the strap of her bag, lifted the torn boarding stub from the counter, and folded it neatly. Then she slid it into her jacket pocket like evidence. The gesture sent a ripple through the lounge. It wasn't defiance, it was documentation. The scarfed attendant hissed. "Don't play games. We can make you disappear from here in seconds." The words hung heavy, threatening but hollow, and the room knew it. The teenage boy whispered again, louder this time. "They're scared of her." His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not scared yet, but they will be." The black woman lowered her hand from the pocket, her eyes sharp, steady, unblinking. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't plead. She simply existed, an immovable fact in a room built on lies. And the more she stayed, the more their authority unraveled. The clipboard slam still echoed when the next sound arrived. Heavy footsteps. Two men in navy uniforms strode into the lounge. Security. Their badges glinted under the cold fluorescent lights. Radios clipped to their belts. Authority stitched into every seam. "Problem here?" the taller one asked. Voice flat, practiced. The supervisor pointed immediately, finger jabbing toward her. "Remove her, now. She's not authorized." "Oh." Every phone lifted higher. The constellation of cameras became a sky of witnesses. The black woman didn't move. She stood anchored, eyes calm, hands at her sides. No fear, no rush. One of the guards stepped closer. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us." He reached toward her bag, fingers brushing the strap. Gasps rippled. A woman near the espresso counter whispered, "He touched her bag. She didn't give permission." Ugh. The black woman's voice finally entered the room, low, steady, unmistakable. "Don't." Just one word, but it froze him mid-motion. The shorter guard shifted uneasily. "This is standard procedure." Her eyes locked on his. "Standard is not stripping dignity." The words landed heavy. Even those who had doubted her shifted uncomfortably. The scarfed attendant crossed her arms, smirking. "You see? Non-compliant. That's grounds for removal." Phones caught every syllable. The teenager's live-stream comments flashed. "She's calm. They're not. This is going viral. Name the airline." The taller guard straightened, voice harder now. "Last chance, ma'am. Cooperate, or we'll escort you out." The black woman didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly slid her hand into her jacket pocket, pulled out the folded stub of her torn ticket, and held it up between two fingers. "You tore this," she said quietly. "In front of everyone here. Cameras are recording. Protocol or not, what you just did is unlawful." The room shifted again. Gasps, murmurs. Someone muttered, "She's right." The guard hesitated. His hand dropped a few inches. But the supervisor barked, desperate now. "Don't listen to her. She's a fraud. Drag her out." The crowd stirred. A woman in the navy dress raised her voice, steady this time. "No, she's not leaving. We saw what you did." Her words lit the fuse. More voices joined. She showed her pass. "You ripped it up! We're witnesses!" The supervisor turned red, his control dissolving in the chorus of defiance. The black woman's gaze swept the room once more. Silent, unshaken. She didn't need to argue. The crowd was speaking for her now, and with every word they spoke, her silence grew louder. The taller guard tightened his jaw. He didn't like hesitation. His hand moved again, more forceful this time, reaching not for the bag, but for her arm. The black woman didn't step back. She didn't even blink. "If you touch me," she said, calm but edged with steel, "you'll answer to more than your manager." The guard froze mid-reach. The words didn't sound like a bluff. They sounded like fact. The scarfed attendant scoffed, trying to regain the stage. "Empty threats. She's wasting everyone's time." But the room no longer believed her. Phones hovered higher. Passengers leaned forward. The air itself was siding with the woman in white. The supervisor, red-faced, barked, "Remove her." The shorter guard stepped closer, radio in hand. "Dispatch, we need backup in the premium lounge." His voice carried across the glass partitions, feeding the tension. That was the moment she moved, not to retreat, but to rise. Straightening her shoulders, she slid the torn ticket back into her pocket and drew out her phone. Her voice dropped lower, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Initiate Protocol 1. A pause, then a crisp reply over speaker. "Confirmed. System is live." The supervisor frowned, thrown off. "What the hell is she doing?" The scarfed attendant hissed, probably stalling, but the phones caught every word, every twitch. And the crowd knew stalling didn't sound this precise. The woman in white continued, her tone unwavering. "Log the incident. Timestamp every insult. Record the destruction of property. Flag security escalation." "Yes, ma'am," the voice on the other end answered. The taller guard stepped back, uncertain now. "Who are you talking to?" She turned her eyes on him. "The only people who outrank you here." Gasps rippled through the lounge. A passenger whispered, "She's someone." Another whispered back, "No, she's the one." The teenager's live stream exploded with comments. "What's Protocol 1? She's not bluffing. This is bigger than it looks." The supervisor slammed his hand on the counter again, desperate to reclaim control. "Don't listen. She's manipulating you. She has no authority here." Ezel. But his voice cracked on the last word, and everyone heard it. The black woman didn't raise hers. She didn't need to. She simply ended the call with 3 words. "Continue phase 2. The line clicked, silent but absolute, and suddenly, the balance of power in that lounge no longer belonged to the uniform. The silence after her last command was thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. That was when a new voice cut through a deeper one, arrogant, laced with certainty. The assistant manager, gray suit stretched tight, stepped forward from the back of the lounge. His tie hung loose, his eyes sharp with disdain. "This woman is a fraud," he declared, loud enough to make sure every witness heard. "She doesn't belong here. She staged this whole thing." The crowd stiffened. Phones zoomed closer. He jabbed a finger toward her like he was making a closing argument in court. "She's impersonating a premium client. That's identity theft. Security, call the police now." The scarfed attendant folded her arms, smirking as if victory had returned to her side. "Finally, someone saying it plainly." The black woman stood silent, steady, her phone still in hand. She didn't interrupt. She let their words pile higher and higher like bricks in a wall they were building around themselves. The assistant manager pressed on, voice rising with each phrase. She refused compliance. She destroyed property. She threatened staff. "Every second she stands here is a liability to this airline. Remove her, or I'll file the report myself." Gasps erupted again. The crowd wasn't buying it. A woman in the navy dress shook her head. "That's not true. We all saw what happened." The manager turned on her, sneering. "You're just a bystander. Stay out of this." But it was too late. The room wasn't siding with him. It was closing in. The teenage boy whispered into his live stream, voice trembling. "They just called her a fraud. This is insane." Everyone saw the truth. Comments flew across the screen. "They're scared of her. He's lying. Keep recording." The shorter guard lifted his radio again. "Dispatch, escalate. Possible fraudulent activity. Request police response." Those words shifted the air. Police. The stakes were no longer whispers or protocol. They were turning her presence into a crime. The black woman finally exhaled, slow and deliberate. Her voice cut into the noise, low but commanding. "You call me a fraud?" She lifted her chin. "In a lounge I paid for? With a ticket you tore? In front of witnesses who will testify against you?" Her words carried weight like steel. But the assistant manager only smirked, clinging to control. "Words don't matter. Law does. And the law is already on its way." The scarfed attendant added, smug. "Enjoy your arrest. Maybe then you'll learn your place." Phones caught everything. The crowd murmured louder. The tension was unbearable, stretched to its breaking point. And in the center of it all, she remained still unmoved, unbroken, because she knew their arrogance had just triggered the one mistake they couldn't undo. The word police rippled through the lounge like a siren no one could hear yet, but everyone could feel. Murmurs spread faster than the Wi-Fi signal. "They really called the cops?" someone whispered. Another voice answered, "For what?" She didn't even move. The shorter guard spoke into his radio again, louder this time, as if volume made him righteous. "Confirmed. Dispatch en route. Possible fraud in the premium lounge." The phrase "possible fraud" echoed off the glass walls. Passengers shifted uneasily, glancing at the woman in white, then back at their phone. The black woman didn't flinch. Her eyes followed the guard's hand as he clipped the radio back to his belt, steady, calculating. A woman in a navy dress finally raised her voice, shaking off hesitation. "This is wrong. She showed her ticket. You tore it." Her words cut through like a crack in glass. The assistant manager snapped back. "You're obstructing security. Stay silent." But she didn't. "No. We all saw it." She turned, gesturing at the others. "Tell them." For a moment, the lounge teetered, then voices broke loose. She did nothing. She was calm the whole time. They ripped her pass, not her. The crowd shifted, leaning in. no longer just observers but participants. The scarfed attendant hissed, "You're letting her manipulate you." But her words rang hollow now. The witnesses had seen too much. A teenage boy raised his phone higher, his live stream comments exploding. "This is discrimination. We're watching history. Tag the airline." The taller guard barked, "Everyone back. This is security protocol." But the crowd didn't back away. They edged closer instead, a circle of silent defiance forming around the black woman. The assistant manager's face flushed crimson. "Fine. Let them watch. They'll see her taken out in cuffs." Phones gasped louder than people. The room itself seemed to inhale. That was when she finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her phone back to her ear. Her voice was calm, surgical. "Proceed with Phase 3. On the other end, the reply was instant. "Confirmed. Corporate compliance is live. Audio and video streams are synchronized. Incident logs updated." The supervisor stiffened. "Corporate? What corporate?" Her gaze didn't leave his face. "The only authority that matters." Gasps, murmurs. Someone whispered, "She's not bluffing." The scarfed attendant tried to laugh, but it cracked halfway. "You think a call is going to save you?" The black woman's voice cut sharper now, quiet but lethal. "No, it's going to end you." And the room knew the shift was already happening. The cops might be coming, but justice was already here. The air was brittle, like glass about to shatter. Every eye tracked her as she lowered the phone from her ear. The glow of screens reflected in her pupils, 100 silent witnesses burning her image into memory. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You've spent the last 15 minutes trying to erase me," she said, her words slow, deliberate, slicing through the tension. "You called me a fraud. You tore my property. You tried to summon the law against me." The assistant manager snorted, but it sounded hollow now. "Because you don't belong here." Her gaze locked on him, unblinking. "No, because you don't know who does." A ripple went through the crowd. Phones trembled in hands. She reached into her bag and drew out a second card. Not paper, not plastic, but metal. Black, etched with her initials, edges catching the light like a blade. She held it steady between her fingers. "This," she said, "isn't just access. It's ownership." The scarfed attendant blinked, her smirk faltering. "What? What do you mean?" The black woman straightened, her presence filling the lounge like it had always belonged to her. "I'm not a passenger. I'm not a guest trying to sneak into your little lounge." She let the silence stretch before the strike. "I am the CEO of this airline." Gasps detonated. The teenage boy's livestream comments flooded in. "What? CEO? She owns them." The woman in the navy dress pressed her hand to her mouth. A man near the counter whispered, "Oh my God." The assistant manager shook his head violently, denial dripping from every syllable. "Lies. She's making this up." But his voice cracked, and the crowd heard it. The black woman turned slightly, gesturing toward the phones raised around her. "Every second has been recorded. Every insult, every unlawful act, every face." The taller guard's hand dropped from his belt. The shorter one stepped back, eyes darting to the floor. Her voice cut sharper. "You tried to humiliate me in a lounge I built. You called me a fraud in a company I own." She let the weight of it settle, pressing down on every chest in the room. The scarfed attendant whispered, almost to herself, "CEO?" Her scarf suddenly looked more like a noose. The black woman lifted her chin, the torn boarding pass still tucked in her pocket like a relic of arrogance. "Your mistake isn't just against me. It's against the system you work for. And that system answers to me." Phones shook in hands. A wave of awe swept the room. And in that moment, the truth wasn't just revealed. It was undeniable. The words hung in the air like a verdict. "I am the CEO of this airline." And suddenly the room wasn't quiet, it was chaos. The scarfed attendant stumbled back a step, her lips parting soundlessly. The red of her scarf seemed to drain from her face. "CEO?" she whispered, voice cracking. The taller guard's arms fell to his sides. He looked at his partner, searching for instruction, but found only the same fear staring back. Their radios were dead weight now, their authority evaporated. The assistant manager shook his head violently, denial still clinging like a lifeline. "This can't be. No, you're lying. If you were the CEO, you wouldn't be standing here alone." Her eyes pinned him in place. "And yet here I stand." Gasps rippled again, followed by murmurs swelling into a tide. Passengers leaned closer, phones trembling as they captured every second. A woman whispered, "She owns this place." Another answered, "They just tried to throw her out of her own company." And the supervisor's clipboard slipped from his hands, clattering to the marble with a hollow echo. He reached for words but found none. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The crowd's shift was complete. They weren't bystanders anymore, they were jurors. Every phone was an open courtroom, every live stream a record no manager could erase. The black woman turned slowly, letting her gaze sweep across the faces frozen in shame. "You called me a fraud. You tore my ticket. You touched my property. And you threatened me with the police." Her words struck each of them like a hammer blow. The scarfed attendant clasped her scarf with trembling fingers, as if it might shield her from the truth. I didn't know," she stammered. "Exactly," the woman replied, her tone steady, precise. "You never knew. You never asked. You just assumed." The assistant manager opened his mouth again, desperate to salvage control. "She can't prove it. This is all performance." But before he could continue, the teenager with the live stream shouted from the corner, voice cracking with adrenaline. "It's true. Look at her card, look at her confidence. She's not begging, she's commanding." The crowd erupted with agreement. "We saw everything. You humiliated her. You're finished." The black woman didn't need to raise her voice. She let the chorus of witnesses speak for her. Their words weren't just opinion, they were judgment. And the accused scarf, supervisor, manager, looked smaller with every echo. Phones stayed high. Faces stayed fixed. The room was no longer theirs. It belonged to her, and they knew it. The silence that followed was the kind that breaks careers. The black woman lifted her phone again, not in anger, but in finality. Her voice was calm, clipped, the tone of someone who had already decided. "Begin termination protocol, effective immediately." On the other end, the assistant's voice rang crisp and unshaken. "Names?" Her eyes swept the front of the lounge scarf, trembling, supervisor pale, assistant manager clinging to denial. "Terminate Matthew Cole, assistant manager. Remove Sarah Green, floor supervisor. Dismiss Emily Ward, customer service attendant. Lock credentials now." The reply was immediate. "Confirmed. Access revoked." And then it happened. The supervisor's badge buzzed red, its light flickering out. The scarfed attendant glanced down at her tablet, watching the screen blink. Access denied. The assistant manager's phone vibrated in his pocket system logout. Gasps rolled through the crowd like thunder. "What's happening?" the scarfed attendant whispered, voice fraying. "You're locked out," the black woman answered simply. "You don't work here anymore." The clipboard hit the marble again, this time not from anger, but from surrender. The assistant manager's knees bent slightly, as if the weight of his dismissal was physical. No, this isn't possible," he stammered, looking around for allies. But there were none, not a single sympathetic face, not among the staff, not among the passengers, not in the entire lounge. Every phone caught it, the blinking badges, the frozen logins, the unraveling of authority. The teenage boy's live stream exploded with comments. "She fired them live. Look at their faces. Powerful." The woman in the navy dress stepped forward, voice steady, delivering the final nail. "You said she didn't belong, but it was you who never did." The crowd murmured in agreement, voices rising like a tide. The black woman tucked her phone away, calm as ever. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stated the truth. "Your employment ended the moment you mistook prejudice for protocol." The words landed heavier than any shout. The scarfed attendant's knees wavered. The supervisor covered his face with one hand. The assistant manager looked at the ground, lost in silence. And the lounge itself seemed to exhale, authority realigned, justice executed in real time. The lounge had never been so quiet. 3 uniforms stood hollow badges, dead, access denied, futures severed. Around them, passengers pressed closer, not out of chaos but reverence. Every phone was still lifted, but now not just to witness shame, to capture power. The black woman stood at the center, steady as marble, eyes scanning the room like a judge delivering her final words. "You tried to humiliate me," she said, her voice measured, deliberate. "But humiliation only works when I accept it, and I don't." The scarfed attendant trembled, clutching her scarf like it could hold her job together. The supervisor's clipboard lay abandoned at his feet. The assistant manager's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Their silence was the only confession left. She turned slowly, letting the crowd see her face, see the calm that had carried her through every insult, every shove, every false accusation. Dignity is not optional. Respect is not up for debate. And justice, she paused, letting the word land, is not delayed. Gasps broke into applause, tentative at first, then building. Hands clapped against palms, echoing through glass and steel, growing louder with every beat. The lounge that had once felt hostile now vibrated with approval. The teenage boy shouted into his live stream, voice trembling with excitement. "She just ended them! Live! The CEO just ended them!" His screen filled with comments. Legend. Power move. "I'll never fly another airline." The black woman lifted her bag, adjusted it on her shoulder, and spoke once more. "I don't need to record what you did to me. I am the result of it. Every attempt to erase me became another reason I built higher. And today, you've proven why I had to." The words struck deep. They weren't just for the fired staff. They were for every passenger watching, every viewer online, every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. Her gaze swept the room one last time. This airline belongs to the people who believe in dignity, not the people who try to strip it away. Remember that, the next time you decide who belongs. Then she turned, walked past the frozen staff, and stepped into the lounge, not as a guest, not as a passenger, but as its owner. Phones followed her every stride. Applause followed her every step, and justice followed her out the door.